question. That's the first thing, is how do you ask a question? Just unmute yourself and ask. This is just a gathering of folks. If we were in a coffee shop, I'd expect you to do the same thing. And will this be recorded? I am recording it right now. Where can you get the presentation? I'm not sure if you'd really want it, but I will email it out to everybody who registered. And more information about Salesforce Saturdays. I'm going to be sharing it on my LinkedIn, so definitely LinkedIn connect with me if we're not already connected. And then I'll try to be posting it other places, and maybe we can create, a lot of the Salesforce Saturdays have meetups. I don't know if that really makes sense given that this worked pretty well. So just, yeah, I'll read through the chat in a minute, or if somebody wants to read some stuff in the chat that you think is relevant to what I'm saying, or that they can't hear me or something like that, please let me know. All right, so what we're going to talk about today. So Salesforce Saturdays, I'm going to just go over what they are, how it got started, an overview of what nonprofits do, because we have a wide breadth of people here right now. We have people who haven't used Salesforce at all, some that are admins full-time at for-profits, some that work at nonprofits, some that have been doing Salesforce for nonprofits. So we have a lot of different types of people. So I want to go over like what the nonprofit landscape is in business, and then what the nonprofit success pack data model looks like, and some cool admin settings that we might not normally think about. And especially if you've gotten hired at a nonprofit and you've been working at for-profits, you might not realize where some of the Npsp settings are. And I'm going to use some examples from CDC Foundation, where I've been contracted to work because of their massive amounts of data. And I think one of my, at least a couple of my coworkers have joined us as well. And then Q&A, brainstorm, if y'all want to hang on. Normally, Salesforce Saturdays have been for specifically geared towards people like coming to a coffee shop and doing trailheads together and asking questions about their jobs, and, you know, a smaller group of people. And that's typically how they've been done. Obviously, that's not exactly feasible right now, but I think that, you know, Salesforce Saturdays during COVID look like this, what we're doing right now. So like I said, feel free to chime in, ask questions. I'm gonna present. But if you have something you want to present on one of these weeks, or you have questions, you know, I think that's how this will go. If anybody has some suggestions right now that if they've been to other Salesforce Saturdays during COVID, I am really happy to hear them. Okay, so I am Sarah Epting. I have recently founded my own Salesforce consulting firm that's geared towards nonprofits, but also training people to become Salesforce administrators. So I've run a beta class of people interested in being administrators, and I'm going to be launching my full class with a printed notebook and that sort of thing, and hopefully some materials that I feel like aren't available. So like I said, like some of us grew up having textbooks. So having a workbook where I can say, okay, go to setup, look for this, write in what you see. I think that will be helpful. And with that, I am also building in projects. So like the CDC Foundation has agreed to have one of my classes be in a sandbox. and do security. So I'm looking for nonprofits and possibly for-profits that would be willing to have a sandbox experience for this class as well, so that people can get real life, like a real world project, sort of like you do if you've been to college, where they have you work with nonprofits to do some kind of project that you then present to the nonprofit as a possible a possibility that the nonprofit could do to improve their business processes or their marketing or their advocacy or that kind of thing. I'm trying to form those relationships right now. I have 6 certifications. I have an MPA in nonprofit management and 10 years of nonprofit industry doing marketing and development, fundraising, event planning, technology kind of came in there. When you're at a small nonprofit, you wear lots of hats, and so that's kind of where Salesforce came in, and so I've been doing that since 2015. And then Mark, who kind of came to me and said, let's do this. You introduced yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Palmocchi. I'm the managing partner at Cloud Source Advantage, which is my own startup company. It's been around for about 3 years. We specialize in sales, operations, and strategy consulting, mostly to ISVs, Salesforce ISVs, and SIs. I'm 2-time certified Salesforce admin and Salesforce consultant, sales consultant. Currently working on my Npsp certification. I have an MBA Business Administration from Mercer University just out in Atlanta, and I am currently the Daytona Beach Salesforce user group leader.
And just so everybody knows, Salesforce Saturdays are not official user groups. So this is really, we don't register with Salesforce or anything like that. So if you have any questions, let me know.
There's no meat. That's fine. Just leave it here.
Please mute yourself.
Yes.
Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
Someone just rang me and said it's in the waiting room. If you don't mind letting me in.
Okay. It said 0 in the, you see how it said 0 in the waiting room right there? Oh. Okay. That's the whole reason I have this right here, so it would pop up. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Thank you so much for letting me know. Okay. So like I said, we have a breadth of people here. So I kind of wanted to overview nonprofits and some of the questions that I get from Salesforce admins who work for for-profits about what nonprofits are. I know that there's some people not in the US on this call. I don't know much about non-US nonprofits. So that's what I'm going to speak to. If you have some differences from what I say and you want to chime in with what happens in the UK or another country, I'm happy to hear it. But in the US, nonprofits are mission-driven, and I'm going to go ahead and mute all, but everybody can unmute yourself if you have questions, since we have some background noise. Okay. So the nonprofits are mission-based and are not owned by individuals or shareholders. So if you hear somebody say, oh, you know, if you see something on, sometimes I see things on television and the person owns the nonprofit. Nobody owns a nonprofit. The nonprofit is owned by the public and the board making, the volunteer board making administrative decisions. So if you're a donor to a nonprofit, they have public statements and you can ask for financial statements. And you can get a lot more information about nonprofits and their revenue streams and their income and expenses than you can a for-profit, right? That's public information. If you go to guidestar.org, you can download their 990s. If you ask for their 990, they are required to give it to you. So you can get paid. This is a question I get a lot. Can you get paid to work for a nonprofit? And you can, right? So nonprofit does not mean that nobody earns revenue. It's completely different, right? Nonprofit means there's no profit earners. Like just like in a for-profit company, sometimes they put all the money back in to the business. It's basically that, right? All the money goes back into running the nonprofit. And sometimes people say, well, I think that nonprofits should only spend 20% of their income on overhead. And that's a nice rule, but sometimes that's not feasible, right? So sometimes you could actually do more good, and help more people if you spent 30% on your admin cost. And that's just something to keep in mind as you're a consultant. And I have to remind myself of that too, that charging for your services and charging for technology services will hopefully in the long run get an ROI that helps them serve more people, further their mission, further their cause. And nonprofits do pay employment tax and sometimes sales tax. So in a lot of states, they have to pay sales tax. They don't get exempt from that. In Illinois, I know I read that they don't, and it just depends state to state. So like I said, this is the United States. I should know more about international because like I said, I did get my master's in nonprofit management, but I can't remember from studying about it. So I'm going to keep, I'm sorry I don't have it on slide view. I hope everybody can see. I could zoom in a little bit more. I just don't want to miss somebody. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and put it on slide view.
Is it? Okay, I was just going to say, if you could just close out the design ideas window.
Oh yeah, that
it's
works.
A bit distracting.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Bigger. Thanks.
All right. So Salesforce use and you. So for those who don't know, Salesforce gives 10 free licenses. I see my screen is frozen. Can everybody hear me still?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, great. My video is just frozen.
Yep.
So Salesforce gives 10 free licenses to nonprofits. I put free in quotation marks because as the people who use Salesforce know, it can be kind of complicated, right? So you definitely want, if a nonprofit is asking you about Salesforce and whether it's good for them, I think it's really good for us to keep in mind, because I love Salesforce and I have a lot of fun programming automations and templates and that sort of thing, but it's not the right fit for every nonprofit. And it's $36 per month per user for their base licenses after those 10 free licenses. So for larger nonprofits and even smaller nonprofits, it can be the best solution. But there are a lot of competitors out there that for nonprofits that are mainly run by people who aren't as tech savvy might be a better option than Salesforce. But there's a separate community called Power of Us that you can join as a Salesforce user when you're at a nonprofit org. So if you're consulting at a nonprofit org, you can join the Power of Us network through that Salesforce login and be able to see, sort of like you do on the regular Salesforce community, questions that people have and chime in with answers and get some specifics about the nonprofit cloud in particular. Excuse me. And then, like I said, you can get paid for working as a Salesforce admin at a nonprofit. There are full-time people who work as Salesforce admins, and then there's consultants, and obviously there's some part-time as well. And so, and why do nonprofits need it? So there's loads of data that they have to deal with. My first job was at a nonprofit that helps people, low-income Georgians get eyeglasses, eye surgeries, and hearing aids. And there we had to take applications. We were taking paper applications. So somebody calls on the phone and says, I need eyeglasses. I wrote their name on an envelope right then, stamped it, sent it out that day, had it pre-stuffed with an application. And so we didn't even know who we were sending them to. And so we didn't know the return rate on those applications. They come back in, we manually entered them into a database that was kind of like a hard coded database. Now this was in 2006, so there wasn't tons of stuff in the cloud anyway. But systems are important. So that system was important to us, even if it wasn't in Salesforce. But people can do more good if they have the correct systems in place, as many of us know. So these are some of the nonprofits that use Salesforce. There's tons of them. Here's CDC Foundation, where, like I said, myself and a colleague of mine are working right now. And then I just want to go over the basic data model, and then we're going to do a demo. And if anybody has any questions right now, like I said, you can just unmute yourself and ask questions. Oh, there's one person in the waiting room. Okay. So the basic account model that Nonprofit Success Pack uses is a little different than the for-profit. So for those who haven't seen it before, you have contacts, add an account just like you would normally, but they have something called household accounts and organizational accounts. So the household accounts would be like if I donated, which would be an opportunity. So I donate to the Georgia Lions Lighthouse Foundation, and that opportunity gets put in. And then sorry, somebody else to admit. So I donate there, and my contact is created. And unlike in regular Salesforce, if you create the contact, it'll automatically create the household account for you. So that's kind of how the opportunity would work. If I have an API, say, connecting from my website to Salesforce and a donation comes through, it'll create my contact first, which will then automatically create my household account. And I'm going to show you an example of this in a minute. And then for contact relationships, so nonprofits really are, the thing about the CRM that's really good for them is that they want to be able to make connections. So, I mean, and it's true for any business, but especially for getting donations, you want to have somebody who is your champion, right? So I am the champion for New City Players in South Florida that is a theater company that I love. And so I tell everybody I know about it, and I buy other people's season tickets when it wasn't COVID. And it would be good if they could track those relationships so that when it comes Christmas comes around holiday time to ask for donations, they can say, oh, Sarah, I see your mother is this person, or, you know, I see your daughter is this person. Would you be willing to send this ask out for her? And just tracking those relationships is kind of important. And there's something in Nonprofit Success Pack called Relationship Viewer that puts it out, and not quite like this chart, but it has a visual representation. If I click on a person and I click Relationship Viewer, if you had put in all the relationships, I can see the spider out from all of those relationships. And then for organizational, it works similarly. So if I have the Coca-Cola Foundation, which I think is the Woodruff Foundation, but anyway, I have them in there as an account. I can, if I work there, I can do an affiliation between the two. And so I'd be able to see all the different places, all the different accounts that this household is affiliated with. So I'm gonna do a show and tell a little bit. Did everybody pretty much already know that? Was that new information for anybody? You can just put it in the chat. I'll read the chat. Okay. Yes, it's new for me. Yes. Okay, then I'm glad I shared it. Okay, so then this, can you still see my screen? Are you seeing Salesforce, or have I stopped sharing? You can?
You can still
Okay.
see
Okay, great.
customizable roll-ups.
Customizable roll-ups. I'm not, because some people said that was helpful, I'm going to first go to, this is a sandbox that does not have any data in it. So there will be no reports loading or anything like that. This is basically a fresh instance in terms of the actual, doesn't have any accounts or contacts, but the metadata or the objects where that data lives, those have been added here. So like I said, in Nonprofit Success Pack, contacts are king in terms of when you start to create a relationship with someone. So if I click on a new contact, and I'm going to put my name in here, and I don't have to put an account name because you'll see what happens. So I'm going to put Sarah Epting. I could put some other information. Y'all want to send me a birthday present? There I am. I can put in my street address, and you can actually look up street addresses for folks. I know that there's some folks who aren't familiar with Salesforce at all on the call. So I could look up my address right here, and Salesforce would automatically get the zip code and things, so there's less data entry error. So I'm going to save that, and you'll see in a minute that it will create the household automatically. And it's being a little slow, but while it's being slow, does anybody have any questions? Oh, there it goes. So now you can see it, the Sarah Epting household, right there. And if I wanted to go to my household, you could see multiple, I could add another contact to my household. So if I was going to add my husband here, I'll just add his name. I could do that. And another thing that Nonprofit Success Pack has that some others don't is when you add the address, it becomes inside your account, it becomes this other record of address. And the reason for that is if I went and changed my address, if I added another address, then I could see the history of all my addresses. Or for people in Florida like me, there's a lot of people who are snowbirds, maybe not this year, but that go up to New York during the spring, summer, and come back down here during the winter. So what this allows you to do is put a default address, or you can mark it as seasonal as well. And then, and there's somewhere you can do that within the address object. I'm not seeing it right now, but they have it on Trailhead. You can look it up or Google it. That's my favorite thing about Salesforce administration, is that if you don't know what you're doing and you're nervous about starting your first Salesforce job, just know that everything's on Google. You can learn as much as you want to learn. So, oh, Yvonne's waiting to get admitted. So that is how you create a contact and account if it's a household. If I was going to create an organizational account, which means, so like a foundation, say, let's just do the Woodruff Foundation because I brought that one up just earlier. I can type in the name of the foundation. I could add a primary contact to that foundation. And when I do that, by default, if I added a new contact here, and it was an organizational contact, different organizations are going to do it different ways, but at the CDC Foundation, if I added somebody's name here as the primary contact at the CDC Foundation, it will automatically create a household account for her. And what's cool about that is maybe I form a relationship with this contact, and then she moves on from the Woodruff Foundation to some other foundation. Then Leah gets associated with having worked at the Woodruff Foundation previously. She's associated with her new foundation, and I can personally, if I'm a development officer and I've developed a close enough relationship with Leah throughout, maybe she's been at 3 different foundations, then maybe I send her the holiday ask after 3 years or so, and I have her personal contact information to connect her personal gift with. And then for those, again, there's some people who are new. So opportunities are where we track revenue in Salesforce. So in CDCF, we have 4 different opportunity types. The opportunity that would come in if you made a gift on the website is this opportunity type. And because of Npsp settings that we're going to look at in a little bit, you don't have to actually, it's a required field, this opportunity name, but it will automatically rename it. And you see the household name automatically renamed to my name and Adriel's name when I put him as a contact in my household. But I'm going to be the primary contact because I'm the one giving, right? So I'm going to give $100 today, and it'll automatically be set to received when you give online. And CDC Foundation has a lot of campaigns that they run, so this might be part of a mailing campaign, or like I said, if I'm giving on the web, a website campaign, so they'd put a primary campaign source in. So a campaign, like I said, some of you are new. A campaign is just what it sounds like. So if you can think about an email campaign, if you receive emails from maybe you buy something from Walmart and you've started getting emails from them, that is an email campaign, and they might be trying, or let's say you gave money someplace and then they are emailing you. That's a campaign, right? They're trying to get you to give a donation, and they're doing that within a specific amount of time. So if they had a matching donation of $50,000 and they're trying to get that to match before the end of December, then they're going to attach any of the gifts that come in from the links that they send out in those emails to that particular campaign. So let's just call this holiday campaign. And I can pick a type of campaign. So this could be for the annual fund. And this is how, like I said, CDC has had this customized for them, even though this is just the sandbox. But let's say it's in progress. I've already sent something out. It's starting today, and it's going to end in December. And if this was part of a bigger campaign, an annual fund campaign, I could establish a parent campaign so that I can kind of see how well things are performing. So I'm going to pick that as my campaign, and I'll show you why that's kind of cool in a second. after it saves. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, so another thing about nonprofits are that when you do get a grant or even a gift from an individual donor, sometimes that gift is restricted. So, oh, sorry, there's 2 people waiting to enter the room. Sometimes that gift is restricted. So if that gift is restricted, you can indicate it here to be restricted, that just to be certain, but you also want to put a general accounting unit on it. So that means that you might have, so for the example I gave, Georgia Lions Lighthouse Foundation, where we helped low-income Georgians get eyeglasses, eye surgeries, and hearing aids. We had funds designated that we could only spend on eye surgery, funds designated where we could only spend it on eyeglasses, funds designated where we could only spend it on hearing aids, and then a general fund where we could spend it on keeping the lights on and on salaries and office supplies and whatever. So these are important to set up because of that. And they're important because when you get a grant, then you want to be able to say how much you spent towards something and how much you got towards that campaign. So if an expense comes in for an eye surgery, I want to be able to match that up with the gift that came in to go with that eye surgery. I'm just going to save it, and hopefully that's the only, that's the only field required right now.
Hey, Sarah, we have a question.
Yes.
About earlier about the address.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look in the chat, you'll see.
Sure. And I also had a question from somebody ahead of time, but I'm going to get to that towards the end. No, I'm not saying, okay, so when I said incorrect address, it's not an additional feature. What I was saying, so the question was, earlier you mentioned that an incorrect address would be corrected by the system, but I believe that's an additional feature. So you can enter any kind of address you want. So if I go to my account, I could enter my address right here, and I could enter it completely wrong. I could 80th, 60th Street Road. I could put in something completely wrong. It's just that this search mechanism helps with avoiding that, right? So if I type in that, it automatically gave me the zip code, sort of like Google can do. Oh, I just admitted the person in the room who had that question. So do we need separate licenses for campaigns or marketing and nonprofit org? No. So you can use campaigns in nonprofit. And then obviously setting up reports is really key for nonprofits. And so the use case I want to talk about today with the CDC Foundation is that CDC Foundation was formed in 1995 by Congress to enable them to fundraise with private firms to fund efforts of the CDC. So basically what the sorry, I got distracted by the chat. So basically what the government can't fund, the CDC Foundation is raising funds to extend what the CDC is able to do. So the CDC requests at the CDC Foundation that they want to study a certain thing like malaria or something in particular, something specific, and they have this whole approval process that I won't get into with custom objects, where they send a proof of concept in, and it goes through an approval process in Salesforce. But ultimately, what CDC Foundation is trying to do is get a gift from the Bill and Gates Melinda Foundation to fund that project for the CDC. But what happened with COVID is that obviously the CDC Foundation has these relationships with the CDC as well as the health departments, and they needed an organization to really organize around some of the efforts to combat COVID. They did it in the past with Ebola and Zika and other emergency response efforts, and hurricanes and that sort of thing. So what happened was a call went out to get donations, and last year they had about 1,700 donors, and this year within March and April they got 80,000 more. And that number keeps growing, and the reason it keeps growing is because we might get a check from Facebook, say, or ActBlue, and it's a giant check. And then we have to import all the names of the people who contributed towards that check. So that's what a bulk of the team has been doing. And what became difficult with that, so say I had an opportunity and it was a donation and it came in, and like I said, the account, let's make a new account called Facebook. And the amount of this check was $1.5 million. But then, because it's coming from multiple people, I'm going to press test right now. Oh, I have to say stage. Okay, say it was received. So Facebook wasn't really the donor, right? Like that, they sent a $1.5 million check, but they didn't actually give that money. Say that was divided into 2,000 people. What CDC Foundation is doing is, if the donor, if we have complete information on the donor or partial information, including an email address, there's a team that are loading in the partial soft credits. And so I gave, say Sarah Epting gave $25, and that I'm soft credited for that. And so you'll have so many donors, maybe 1,000 donors, that make up this $1.5 million check, or more than 1,000 probably.
Excuse me, Sarah?
Yes.
So for those that you don't have information on, do you just put them to an anonymous account, or how do you balance the two?
Is Natalie here? Did she come on the call? I don't know if she is. She was planning on coming. She's the person who would be the best person at CDCF to answer that. My understanding is, in particular with Facebook, they're just not importing the person. So it's not, the partial soft credit subtotal is not equal to the 1.5 million, but you could do that. You could put it as an anonymous donor. And they do have an anonymous contact that they put a lot of things to. So actually that might be exactly what they do, because they do have an anonymous household that has a lot of donations against it. So that's probably good practice, so everything evens out. And what's interesting, what was difficult about this, for when I came on board at the CDC Foundation, one of the things that took them a lot of time, because of all these COVID donations with partial soft credits, and also you can also give account soft credits to an account. So maybe the use case that usually comes up is if my family foundation gave a gift, the check is from me, right? Sorry, the check is from the family foundation, but I really want to soft credit Sarah Epting household because Sarah's the one who got her family foundation to give the gift. And really that money is her money too in that instance. So I also could give an account soft credit right here to another account. So let's just make another household account. So I get the partial soft credit on my contact, and then I'm just gonna type in my sister's name. Oh, that
Could you also use that to pay on a pledge, to make a pledge payment?
So, can you give me an example?
Like somebody makes a $10,000 pledge, they pay 5,000 of it and they have their foundation pay 5,000 of it, but it's their initial pledge.
I think that would be, yes, I think you could do that. You can also use the payments object to create multiple payments as well. So if I had a pledge of $10,000, I might put it as a stage of pledge, and I could put how many payments that pledge would be in there.
Yeah, I can't make the balance go down compared to, because it's on the gentleman's account,
Mm-hmm.
but the foundation paid part of it. So the legal
Right. So that's where that partial soft credit comes in. And
it would take the balance down?
On the payments, I think you might
Yeah.
have to manually update the payments to bring them down. So if I did a partial soft credit here, and that was I gave, and then the account soft credit is what my family foundation paid. Actually didn't even put an amount on that one, so that doesn't work. I think that you could probably then put the payments, put the one payment, so if it's $5,000 for the original payment and 5,000 for the second, you could put two payments, and then where you do the account soft credit, that's where it would split the payment. So
Thank you, I'll try that.
yeah. So what the example I want to show you, so now you can see what the dilemma was for the CDC Foundation, was that you want to run a report on how much who's giving, right? So it doesn't really matter necessarily the actual individual gift. We want to get a picture of our donors. And what was difficult was rolling all of that soft credit, account soft credit, and the opportunity amount, if they gave as a hard credit, into one field because and reporting on one field for one report. So if I go to my account here, you can see how I have built some soft credit information. So amount of gifts all time including soft, amount of gifts this fiscal year including soft. And I want to show you how I did that in the Npsp setting. So for those who are not familiar with Nonprofit Success Pack and are already Salesforce admins, which some of the people on the call are, you know that a lot of times when you're doing Salesforce administration, you go to setup, to create fields, to create users, all that good stuff that we learned for the first exam. And so the NPSP, the rolling up of donations and people's names, there are certain settings. So you saw that the household automatically named based on the last name and the first name of the household. And in my case, because my husband has a different last name as me, it said Epting Sarah and Loshak Adriel household. But I could edit this and make it just the last name, which if you're a larger company, I don't really think that would be good. But you could also, you see how the formal greeting is first name, last name. You could add other fields here. So you could add salutation, first name, last name. So now you can see it's gonna say Dr. Sam and Mrs. Sally Smith, or Dr. Sam and Mrs. Sally and Susan Smith. And the name overrun, you could put and friends, which means right here, that means if there's more than 9 contacts on the account, it would list all of their names and then finally and friends. I kind of like to change this to 2. And then family for nonprofits, because typically your friends aren't giving together, you're giving as a family. So that's yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you like a 5-minute time check.
Okay, so yeah, so I mean, I'm just trying to run down some of the basics of NPSP and settings and that sort of thing. But like I said, because there were new people on the call who haven't really experienced Salesforce too much, I did want to go over that data model. And then we can just kind of, I did get a question ahead of time that I do want to address. So his name, are you on the call? Your name starts with a V. I don't want to mispronounce it. Let me see. I'm going to scroll down, see if he's here. Oh, I don't see him.
Is it the question on the NPSP data loader?
Yes.
Yeah, it's me.
Oh, hello. Okay, great.
Hi.
So you want to ask your question?
Yeah, bear with me. I'm just trying to get it up so I can just read it directly.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah. So my question was, because I recently started working for a charity, so first time using the NPSP. Now, I carry out weekly data imports of donations from new and existing contacts. And I'm having problem matching the existing records that are in Salesforce while using the import tool, that's the NPSP import tool. And of course, as we know, the NPSP tool matches by first name, last name, and email. Now, I can't do this match because several donors of ours have the same name. So for example, someone who is Joanne Smith. Joanne Smith, she does another donation, she calls herself Joe Smith. Then again, J Smith, or Joanne with an E. So having the same person, so importing becomes an issue because that means I now have quite a lot of duplicates in the system.
Right.
Yeah.
So what?
So my question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So my question was around how to avoid. What do I do to avoid that? Because the NPSP tool is really complex. I don't want to have to export over 90,000 records just to do VLOOKUPs. That's way too tedious. So is there a more dynamic matching rule that I can set up other than the inbuilt one at the moment that goes by first name, last name, and email address?
Right. So I believe from what I studied when looking at this question is that the answer for Salesforce native is no. So what this person is talking about is that you see, how do you pronounce your name? I'm sorry. Ovoki, perhaps?
It's Voki. No, Voki. Just Voki.
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 Okay. Okay. Voki.
Yes.
What Voki is talking about is in Nonprofit Success Pack. If you're starting, so say you're trying to volunteer for a nonprofit and they want to start fresh and they have some data to import from their previous system. Nonprofit Success Pack has this template for you to import all the information. So usually in regular Salesforce, we would import the account and then find the account we imported and then import the contact and then import this opportunities or sales on top of that contact. Well, Salesforce has tried to make it simpler for you by giving you this giant spreadsheet to put things into with all this information in there. And then what you do is you load this into one object called Npsp data import. And when you load it into that object, you go to the, if I go to the Npsp data imports, I haven't loaded anything in, but if I had, I would be able to click this start data import. I would be able to select, I think that's where you click. I would be able to select, you see this contact matching rule? I can get a contact matching rule of these choices, but we can't change it past this. So we could just do it on first name, last name if you want to make it really loose. Or you could just do it on email. So if I'm importing these things through this function, through this spreadsheet template, I'm telling Salesforce, well, don't import a new contact if it has the same first name, same last name, and same email. So Voki, what we've been using at the CDCF, because we have this issue too, is something called Cloud Dingo. And it's a third-party app, and I searched for various ones, and in terms of bang for your buck, I feel like it's one of the better ones. So they basically, you're able to, that first name issue, so she was saying like somebody's name might be in their system, Joseph, but then when you load it in, it's Joe, right? So what you can do with Cloud Dingo is before you upload, you can say exclude synonyms, and then on the addresses, you can make all the filter rules. So you can make it stricter. You can say address needs to be the same, or billing state needs to be the same, but it's still the same if it's the synonym. So if it's Texas versus TX. So I would highly suggest that. They have a nonprofit discount that's about 10 or 20%. And if you're doing a lot of data loads, they're really helpful. And they really helped us out on just even yesterday, but they've sat on the calls with us for hours, just helping us get it all straight. So, and they don't charge extra for that. That's just part of their support. So I would highly suggest that you look into that and possibly see if you can get the higher ups to clear the cost of that, which is for the medium license that we use, it's like $2,000 a year.
What's it called? Cloud Dingo?
Cloud Dingo, like an Australian dingo. That's their mascot.
Thanks. So just another question still on that. So does it do, because the data, all our data is already in the org, it's just weekly donations that come in. So the weekly donations from people. So it's just that matching bit. Is that something that they also deal with? So it's not like a bulk data import I'm doing anymore. It's just weekly updates. And so I just need to.
Oh, well, see, I think updates, you wouldn't have to use the Npsp data import tool. You could just import them directly through Salesforce's standard data loader.
Yeah, but how would it know, like the example we said, so this Joe Smith, who now decided to use Joanne, decided to put in her full name the next time she was. So now
What
we're trying.
what I tend to do is take an export, or this is what I've tried to do, is
Okay.
take an export of all my contacts, and then I make a key, right? So I concatenate I concatenate the last name and the state, or the last name and some other identifier that I would think would be about the same. And then when I concatenate those two things and then do a VLOOKUP on the Excel sheet, from then the thing I'm trying to load in, I can get more matches. So I'm doing the VLOOKUP to find the contact ID and see if there's a contact ID that matches on my upload. And the more you can narrow it down like that, so it might be that you miss the Joe Smith, right? Like that you're just doing an update and you can't find that contact ID, it's not working. But maybe out of your list of 9,000, 8,500 work. And you're able to find a contact ID and you're able to upload that donation. Then I feel like it becomes more manageable having to do anything manually when you have 500.
Cool.
Does
Thanks.
Npsp have duplicate management that could be utilized to find duplicates to merge? Just the Salesforce, like Npsp itself, I believe I've only used the Salesforce functionality that's built in to identify and merge duplicates. Has anybody else done anything else?
This was a question on the exam too that I took. It was very confusing the way they asked it.
Oh, what was it?
It was basically had something to do with duplicate management and Npsp. I don't remember the specific question, but I'm pretty sure
this is what I like to
it
do.
doesn't have it. Yeah, I didn't think it had a feature for duplicates. Npsp generally.
So the matching rules that I'm used to that are with standard Salesforce, it looks like they have some that are specific to Npsp that come with the package that you can enable. But this is where this is right now, this matching rules, that's where I normally go to start creating a matching rule. And you can see here, you can make it fuzzy on the first name and exact on the last. And in the duplicate rule, you can say whether or not you block the person from creating or loading in the contact if it meets those rules. So then Salesforce won't let it create. Or you can just do a warning and let the person create it anyway. They're like, I know this is a different person. Yes, I want to create it. So you can do your matching and duplicate rules like that.
Cool, thanks.
I know I had scheduled this for an hour. Like I said, I'm happy to stay on. I'm happy to sit and pretend we're in a coffee shop and do trailheads together and ask questions as as they come up, whatever y'all want to do. I have my Saturday open for this.
Yeah. Do you want to give a little update maybe for next week's?
Oh yeah. Sure.
Agenda. That way some folks can go, those who want to hang can hang. But
Sure.
We also like to ask everyone to, if you gained information from this and thought it was valuable, please tell those that you know of that it might be helpful for also.
And I'll send a follow-up email so that if you want to be a part of Technopath's newsletter and what we have coming up, you can sign up for that, and I'll make one separate or have a checkbox for if you just want Salesforce Saturday. updates. I've missed this, but any thoughts on Npsp versus nonprofit cloud? Those are interchangeable terms. They're the same thing.
Yeah,
Um,
I think how they kind of define it too is Npsp is that application, and nonprofit cloud includes other clouds.
oh yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, it's more of a
So you
broader.
can add on, say if you had, say if you use the example that I've been using, the Lighthouse Foundation, we took in a lot of calls. So if you decided to develop a call center, then you might purchase Service Cloud on
Yeah.
top of the cloud that you have, that you're functioning in, the nonprofit cloud. And then that's how that they just use it interchangeably with Npsp, I believe. Somebody else can correct me on that syntax.
Npsp is a sub category of nonprofit cloud.
Right.
Yeah, nonprofit cloud can also include like Pardot and Marketing Cloud and Einstein and those kind of things, where Npsp is really just this application that we were looking at that Sarah showed us today. That's my understanding.
Right. So I'm pulling up what I had said we were going to talk about in the next one. And if anybody else has any tips on what to talk about, and like I said, hang on, let's ask questions, let's do trailheads together. I didn't want this to be just me like lecturing at all, but it's kind of difficult in these times to have it more like we're just hanging out and getting to know one another, especially when we have 47 people on the call, which is great, by the way. I'm so glad we had such good response for throwing this out on Monday.
You made the time go fast too, Sarah. Thank you.
Okay, well, good. Hold on, I'm just pulling up what I said I was gonna do, or what I thought would be good to talk about next week. I believe it's moves management. So basically, especially when you're talking to a nonprofit about why they could use Salesforce, a couple of things that I think are really great features of it are being able to have tasks around engagement. So I can create an engagement plan where I say, okay, if somebody hits the $1,000 level, then I'm going to create a task for the executive director to give them a call next week. I'm going to have a task for the development associate to email them in 3 months and check in on them. I'm going to have a task to send out a survey, just various things that help with moving a donor along a continuum and how those work and the levels that go along with the object levels, which would be that $1,000 level, etc., that go along with that functionality of Salesforce and some of the automations behind that. That's what I was going to touch on, so that anybody who is here from a nonprofit, oh, somebody said they're obsessed with engagement plans. They're useful, right? I think so. I think they're really cool as a former fundraiser. I'm really pushing them on the major gift officer of the CDC Foundation.
That'll be a fun Salesforce.
I think they're really cool. I do. So that's what I was going to touch on next week, and then the week after that, volunteer management, and the week after that, roadblocks for the nonprofit success path. If anybody has any suggestions for the best forum for this group, like if we wanted to have a community group, what that would look like, I'm all ears. Because I'm happy to do it on my company's LinkedIn page, but I don't know if that's the right thing for Salesforce Saturday. So I guess we could create another group, or like I said, anybody have any suggestions on that? That would be super helpful.
Is the Slack group an option?
Sure, okay. I haven't used Slack that much, but that makes sense. Because people can have it as an app on their phone and stuff, right? Or a WhatsApp group, I guess. Stephen, you said that. Are you familiar with administrating a Slack group? Could you volunteer to do that for us?
I will not be the first to raise my hand as the Slack wizard. However, I've spent many a day inside of Slack and happy to help where I can.
Okay, WhatsApp is fine. I hear people saying. I like WhatsApp groups. All right, let's do that.
A survey of some sort.
I'm going to send the survey to anybody who registered because I have all your emails from registering for the Zoom. Slack is on. Okay. People have different opinions. If somebody wants to volunteer to do it,
Let's do a survey.
you win. Your decision wins. All right. So once I figure that out, also, yeah, the email I'm going to send out, you can sign up for my newsletter or updates on Salesforce Saturday, or both. And I encourage you to sign up for my newsletter because I'm trying to vlog. I have one coming out about comparing metadata and data to making a cake. It's going to be very interesting. So somebody says, does anyone use SDocs in Npsp for their templates? I downloaded it once and tried to use it several years ago and couldn't really figure it out. I use Conga templates right now at CDCF, but it's hard to. I feel like there's not, personally, I feel like mail merging it is almost easier, like creating a Word document and mail merging is sometimes easier, but if you can get the handle on any of those, I don't know, I feel like you can, if the best thing is whether or not there's enough support for any of those products like SDocs and stuff.
Got a question. Hello?
Hello, yes?
Hi. Thanks, Sarah, for the presentation. Really good stuff. I'm just wondering, is anyone got any experience around sending out SMS or WhatsApp from Salesforce, Npsp? So maybe I just need to put a little more context around that. In the wake of the COVID and everything, I did start like an implementation of the Npsp for my local church. And we tend to blast out notifications to the entire database, which would be the members that's been put in there as contacts. So, but I mean, Salesforce would just easily let me set that up via email. But most people tend to look at their WhatsApp messages or SMS. Anyone with experience around sending out SMS from Salesforce or actually to a WhatsApp message?
If
without I mean, something like a custom solution in Salesforce. I was looking at some apps. There's this 360 SMS, but it's coming. Again, it's non-profits and it's coming at an high cost to the church, not well discounted. So I was thinking of a way around doing that in the SP.
Are you wanting to collect donations via the text messages as well, or just announce things out?
Oh no, so it's just announce things out, and then maybe because everything is virtual now. So at times we put a link in there. At times we put a link in the messages out to the members to join the church service online, and if we could actually track on the clicks on those links, that would be nice. But I mean, that's a nice to have. But I mean, basic get the message out? Is the
I think that, and other people can speak to this, the ones that I've used that integrate with Salesforce, yes, they cost money. One of the cheaper ones, I guess, is ZipWhip. I think it's cheaper. There's another one called, oh crap, what is it called?
I've heard really good things about Mowgli, M-O-G-L-I. Put their link in the chat. I know I have never used one of these, but I know a lot of nonprofits that do and seem to really like it. And I think
they use Mowgli?
Relatively reasonably priced, but I would just check them out at least.
All right, thanks for that.
And then in terms of WhatsApp, I think that's harder. I know.
Mowgli also does WhatsApp as well.
Oh, they do? Well, there you go. Use Mowgli.
There is. I posted a link. There's instructions in Salesforce for doing integration with WhatsApp. It's on their help site. I'm not sure how hard it is or the details, but it is out there.
Oh, awesome.
Good info.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that.
And then if you are looking for text to give donations, I'm looking up what it's called. Hold on. That integrate with Salesforce. I think it's called Give Kindly. Hold on just a second. Oh, Cheerful Giving. So if you go to cheerfulgiving.com, they have an integration with Salesforce and they have their own CRM and all sorts of platform, but it seems to be really reasonably priced, and they have text to give and they have the fundraising platform, sort of like Classy, although I think Salesforce is releasing their own third-party app. Somebody's saying, what about a Salesforce chatter group? I'm down with that. I can create a chatter group. Let's just hope we don't get more than 5,000 people, right? That's yeah, we could create a chatter group. It's going to be a little harder than a WhatsApp, right? Because, well, I don't know what's harder or easier. I'll try a couple different things and see what people like. The only thing with WhatsApp and Slack, you can have the app on your phone, and even though you have app on Salesforce on your phone, you might not be, your primary one is probably your Salesforce job and not your not this chatter group. So that would be the only downside I could see. But I'll put that in a survey. We'll send it out and see if anybody volunteers to do either. I'm happy to use my 5,000 chatter licenses from Technopath's Salesforce. Okay, so again, I'm going to be having a class, a Salesforce admin class, where I'm trying to get real world projects for us to have in the class. And it should start in February, about 20 people, 10 people in each cohort, each class. And for those who, I didn't get to it, but for those who are interested in volunteering with nonprofits, I did find a link that is a good source I'm putting them in here. That is a good source for finding volunteers, or it's sort of like an Upwork for nonprofits. So this link has the search term that I used as well, the Salesforce search term, but Volunteer Match and TaprootPlus.org. As people are hopping off, thank you so much for coming. This has been great. Looks like about half of y'all.
Sarah, if I could share something.
Sure.
Since we are here with like-minded people, I just wanted to share the information that we are hosting Nonprofit Dreaming in January.
Oh, right.
So there's a link there. it's more ran by community members for small and medium nonprofit groups. So, if you guys want to learn, collaborate, and network in the nonprofit realm, please check it out.
What date is it going to be on?
January 28th and 29th.
And does it cost money?
Right now, we are still in process, but we are trying to coordinate where we can blast it to be available for free 99.
Be available for
Free.
Oh, free 99. I thought you said $3.99. That's more expensive than Dreamforce.
I don't think the call for speakers went out, Sarah, and of course you wanted to be in that. Call for sponsorships will go out Monday.
Oh,
and
okay.
I guess registrations, the registration site will probably go live, hopefully this week, right, Doug?
Yeah, we are trying to develop a timeline on how to share that information. Right now, with 139 applicants, we're going through, the content committee is going through and trying to communicate with presenters about that, and then we will roll out sponsorships and registrations not so long after those informations are shared.
Okay, excellent. Well, Doug, I'll definitely put that in the follow-up email as well.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else want to share, have a desire to sit on a Zoom call while you're doing Trailhead?
Are we about to do some trailheads?
We can. That's
What's about to happen?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to do them like sharing my screen. I'm just saying that's what people do at Salesforce Saturdays normally. They're sitting in a coffee shop. They're just sitting around doing trailheads, occasionally talking to one another. Or that's the ones I've been to.
I'm here for it. Whatever you guys want to do.
Okay, excellent. All right, does anybody else have any questions or like brainstorming on issues they're running into with Salesforce?
Sarah,
Okay.
not really a Salesforce specific question. As I volunteer for a couple of nonprofits, and some of the nonprofits are like brand new, like still learning donation management, grants management, that kind of stuff. Knowing your educational background, do you recommend any like text or information as far as like learning how the nonprofit business process, for lack of a better term, works, so that we can have the same type of, or at least sharing that knowledge with the nonprofit organization?
Sure. I mean, so no one has any nonprofit experience?
So here's an example, right? I'm working with a nonprofit, and they are trying to tap into grants and how that grants process work.
Oh, okay.
Right, and so
like best practices and things like that.
Where are they located?
They are located in the San Diego area, I believe.
San Diego.
Yeah.
So I would suggest seeing if there's a nonprofit center in your area. So just Google nonprofit center and then the name of your area, wherever that is, or state. Like the Georgia Center for Nonprofits is one that I'm familiar with, where you can call them for guidance. And then Foundation Center. So the Foundation directory online, you can find grant makers, and then like Chronicle for Philanthropy has webinars and that sort of thing. And if I can't think of the Ask. That's a really great book for fundraising for your nonprofit or your business or the conference you're doing. I think it's an amazing book. I'd have to look up what the lady's name who wrote it was, but I really like that one. And also Benavon is another system that I really like. I haven't really used it too much, but she gives a free explanation on what what her philosophy and this system that she developed for fundraising is. So sometimes grants can be really difficult because you have to write all this stuff out. It's sort of like sending out, sending to something where somebody's put in a call for proposals, right? You put your proposal in, you don't know how many proposals there are. You spend all this time working on it, and then you don't get it. Versus if you can start grinding and really forming those connections and those relationships so that that would be my best recommendation, is to just like boots to the ground, do it. Now, because I don't think that startup nonprofits are really going to get that many grants unless they partner with another nonprofit. So that's another great way to get a grant without you having to do the writing. So a lot of foundations want collaborative, they want collaborative projects. So if, for instance, say there was a grant from the Annie Casey Foundation, and they wanted some solutions to help rural healthcare in a certain state. Well, that takes a lot of components, right? So if you have 4 different nonprofits that address 4 different needs that rural communities have in order to fight, to improve health, then you're more likely to get that. And if the largest organization that already has a development director and already has a grant writer can write the grant, and then you just kind of add your service underneath that. And so your service as part of the allocated budget is $5,000, and that's the piece that you're going to be doing. Then that's a great way to start to get in funds, is by building connections. It's just like with anything, like networking is king. We'll say queen in nonprofit world.
Thank you.
Looking. I don't know if that's the right one. That doesn't look like the right, I don't think it's a novel, Mark. It's
Okay.
just, I'll find it, because I know what the cover looks like. I have the Audible book, so I can just look on my phone.
I have a general question, because this is my first Salesforce Saturday ever, and maybe I just don't know what it is. But is everyone in this group basically mostly consultants?
I think of the 65 people who registered, it was all over the map.
I'm trying to be a consultant.
Okay.
Are you a full-time admin? Are you working at a nonprofit, or?
Me, right? Yeah, I work full-time as an admin for a nonprofit now. Maybe consulting one day, but I don't even remember how I found the link for this Saturday. And I know that there are Saturdays happening everywhere. So I wasn't sure if this was like a focused one.
It's focused on nonprofits.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, so any topic you want to talk about, or if you want to present one day, or, whatever thing you think is helpful about this group, let us know. This is the first one. So we're just feeling our way through.
Because of the COVID situation, most Salesforce Saturdays were geographic to your town or your area. And so they were all geographic. This one happens to be more of a vertical nonprofits. And, now it's become sort of a national or global thing versus just a local thing. So.
Okay, great. I didn't realize this was the first one.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Oh, I should have said that. Did I say that? I might have.
The inaugural one. Yes, congratulations.
Inaugural. Yes. Hold on. I'm looking up that book.
Can I add
Does
something?
anybody have some nonprofit trailheads that they like doing? I didn't get around to it. I started to do the one on how to do a virtual workshop before this.
Monica asks about if you're new to nonprofit in Salesforce, is there a checklist to go through? And don't you provide templates, Sarah?
I am putting together, somebody want to be my beta? I am putting together a how to get your Npsp up and running in 5 days course. But I have the outline of it. You
Monica,
can follow
she
without
volunteered.
taking the course. Yes, I will be a beta. Okay.
Hey, this is Jason here in Phoenix,
Hey, Jason.
the city where the sun never sleeps. And so I don't have a trailhead, but I do have a podcast series I recommend how
Okay.
I've been super networking. So it's actually the host of the podcast is an admin himself by day, and then host of this podcast, Career Cloud Radio, by other times. And so it's great to listen to for moving your career in any direction, just really securing it. And so I've been binge listening to it. And I came to this one episode in particular that I want to recommend because it's great for networking. It's called Informal Informational Interviews for Interest, Insights, and Introductions. So hearing that inspired me with having this opportunity of all these virtual meetings. Like, I love how this is not geographic. This is a vertical group.
Right.
Yep.
And so I've been going to meetings all around the world, but with that, just having more meetings, it creates more breadth but less depth, because you don't have that in-person time to talk one-on-one with people. So I'm gonna put my LinkedIn on here. I'd love for you to people connect with me. And then when you do, I'm just gonna say like, invite to a one-on-one coffee chat, 15-minute chat. I'm not selling anything. In fact, it's like free therapy because I get to listen to you and tell you how great you are. Whether you're like expert or amateur, it's wonderful.